Marsha, can you hear me? Hey, Marsha, if you can hear me, give me a big thumbs up. Marsha, if you can hear me, give me a giant thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, I am going off audio. I am text only. You are muted. Give me a. When I say go, are you good to start talking? Give me a thumbs up or a. Okay. You are good to go.
Are we live here in Philadelphia?
We are live.
We are live. I'm waiting for some of my colleagues who have helped make today happen. We have finally made it December 21st here on the lawn of Independence Mall, where hundreds and hundreds of handmade blankets are being displayed after tons of artisans' work. We're just so thankful that the love and the care and the support of literally the country is gathered here today, physically in these blankets, but also in the tons of volunteers that were here this morning, gathered up in the cold to display these beautiful blankets that are here. So thank you for being live with us. Shortly, we're going to bring some more folks here, but I'm going to do a quick introduction. My name is Marsha Roscoe. I serve on the staff of the Lower Susquehanna Synod. That means I serve on the bishop staff in the regional adjudicatory office, and we are here representing about 220 of our congregations. Many of our we're here to welcome you on this sunny day, and I hear that you're getting wind but not noise. So we'll just take a moment to pause here. I'm going to step aside so you can see the blankets. Instead of just hear the wind, you can at least see what's going on behind me if you can't hear me. All right, so hopefully you can see the blankets that is gathered here this afternoon. We're going to be here until 5 o'clock. I believe we have about 14 different organizations that are going to be here late this afternoon, that when we gather these blankets up, they're going to go somewhere this evening. So these will make it into the hands of those that need it the most this winter season. So I'm going to hop back here talking to people. Here we are on Independence Mall, where we have lots of visitors who just show up out of nowhere. They don't even know what's going on here. And so we're trying to tell the story of the impact that we have had over these past couple of years. And so folks that are just kind of showing up and walking around the mall are getting a background about how long we've been doing this. And we've got Pat LaMarche, who is our fearless leader, that will be stepping onto the camera in just a bit. And also Matthew Best, who is a pastor that serves alongside me in our Lower Susquehanna Synod, who has been on the ground with us from day one. He has been what I would call a sidewalk prophet for those that are that are that are most in need. He is an advocate. He is just a great public witness and has helped create some systemic change here in Pennsylvania. All right, we're just doing some microphone checks here. You know, we are live. This is what happens when we go live. We want to make sure that you can hear what is going on here at Independence Mall. Checking to see if you folks can hear me now. I don't know. All right, so I think we are better now. Again, we are gathered here on the mall of here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I'll step aside again so that you can see all of these wonderful blankets that have been handmade. We will be posting pictures later. What is so beautiful about this event is once all of these blankets are laid out and you have the opportunity to walk blanket by blanket and look at the amazing artistry and love that has been put into some of these blankets, all of these blankets. But some of these blankets this year have messages written and crocheted and knitted into them. And so I'm going to encourage you to pay attention to the Facebook photos that come out afterwards, that you can actually see the depth of the beautiful work that has been done here by hundreds and hundreds of people. And so coming up with me momentarily is Pastor Matthew Best, and he's going to be able to speak to the work that he has been doing to be an advocate for those that experience homelessness. And also, he's been working with Pat, I believe, about 5 years now, and the Charles Bruce Foundation. A shout out to the foundation, because it is Charles Bruce Foundation that makes this possible. And so I know that Matt and I got the opportunity to meet Pat, 5-6 years ago, and we've just been a team ever since then. So we're going to bring Matt up here so I can introduce him. This is Pastor Matthew Best, who's been on the ground with the Memorial Blanket Initiative from the very beginning. So, yeah, so take it away.
All right, well, we're pretty excited to be here today. I don't know if you had said, but, this was supposed to be a one-year project.
I didn't share that. I did share that we've been here from the beginning, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a one-year project, so hopefully for a while. And after that, what happened was that people came back to Pat and me and said, hey, so we're going to do this again next year, right?
Right.
Like, no.
Right.
And but
I don't know.
this is kind of how this works. It's kind of it's interesting because people are like, oh man, the wind is messing up the blankets and everything. But at the same time, I keep saying, well, that's kind of how homelessness is.
Right.
It's messy.
Yep.
First, it doesn't look pretty.
That's right.
Right. This is the reality of what we have out here. So we're just grateful that it's sunny out, that we're able to do this outside. But this is a really it's always very impactful. One of the things that I really appreciate, people coming out to not only to help out and do this, but just the symbolism to show this is affecting people. Every single one of these blankets that are out here, it's essentially symbolic of a person or a family or a child or a senior or a veteran or whoever the case may be. If they were all laying out a sea of blankets, this is what it would look like to have all those people out here. And we don't know exactly how many blankets, but probably about 1,000 or so.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
What it looks like. So yeah.
Which is really pretty cool when you think about it, because our first year we had about 300 blankets. And
right.
So now here we are, year 4, and we're guessing. I mean, we haven't yet walked the walk and count them all, but probably well over 1,000 blankets. And we really are hoping that this turns into a national movement. We would love to see December 21st taking place in every city in the country, where folks are gathered around just to pay attention to the fact that there are so many folks right in your area that do not have a home. So yeah, I think this is just something that anyone can start up. This was an organic movement that a few folks put on their heart, and it's now grown into 4 years later, this big event.
And even better would be if we didn't have to do this anymore.
Well, amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we would change what our priorities are. I mean, there are places in other parts of the world where cities have eliminated homelessness because they made it a priority, which means they didn't just do one thing. They changed a whole lot of everything that goes into all the systems because they made it a priority that said, we're not going to stand for this. And so that has to do with housing. That has to do with the way that policing happens. It has to do with the healthcare system. It has to do with all sorts of things, all working together to say no one should be homeless. And I mean, that's really the goal, is to eliminate homelessness. And this is one of the things that I have said before, that we're the richest nation in human history, and yet we supposedly can't afford. I mean, it's crazy. So this is something that's just really important, and I think a day like today, where we have these blankets out, it really just highlights the whole idea that we can do something. These are small one way. I mean, I don't know how long it takes people 20, 40 hours to make a blanket like this.
At least, yes.
Right? And so we're talking about hundreds of people who have made blankets for complete strangers. In fact, one of the blankets, I don't know if you had talked about this, that has a message right in it.
I was sharing that. It's the messages that are coming in. Each year, these blankets get more ornate, more personal, to create that personal touch,
Right.
and to let the person know that receives this blanket that we see you, we love you, even though we can't physically see you. We know that you're there and we care about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the blankets. It's one of those things that people are making these blankets. They're putting love. I mean, this is an act of love. In which people are making these for people that they're not going to be, they're never going to know, but they're seeing their humanity far more than what happens in a lot of places in society. That when somebody is unhoused, they just are not seen. And so this is a way for people to know that they were seen. When we arrived this morning, we were unloading the blankets. We were making a big pile. We were starting to take them out, lay them out. There was already a gentleman who said that he needed a blanket.
Yep.
And I said, well, give us a little bit of time
Yep.
so we can at least get them out of the bags. But he said, I'll come back later. So, like, there's a huge need.
Yeah.
And, this guy didn't have as much on as I'm wearing. So, it's a cold day here in Philadelphia.
Yes, it is.
With the wind.
Yep. As you hear.
But this is why this is just so very needed to have this to highlight this issue. It's not just an issue; it's people, it's names, it's stories, it's families. This is well, this is not a political issue the way that we often think about that in the sense of like an abstract argument, but instead this is about people in their lives, the messiness of life, and that we can do something. We can show some love. We can literally hand somebody a blanket, and it actually makes a positive impact on their life. And we can try and have some advocacy towards changing policies and laws and funding to actually improve people's lives so that they're not unhoused and living out on the street.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you to those of you that are tuning in and paying attention to what is going on here today.
So we will have a lot more as we continue on, and with that, we're going to pass it on.
Videos. We're watching videos now.
All right, we're watching videos. Okay.
Enjoy the videos.
Okay, so the videos are real people experiencing issues. So you could toss to a second.
Okay.
She should be good. I think I've moved about 4 to 5 times just within last year. And throughout high school, I've probably moved somewhere around a good 7 to 8 times. Because I'm used to moving so much, I barely sleep at night. And sometimes I get sleepy during the day, and my teachers might let me sleep for like 10 minutes in class, and then they wake me up so I can do my work. So I always try to get done with my work. If I don't, first sergeant comes through the door. Before I go to the military, I promised my first sergeant months along ago that I would go to college first. I have a scholarship actually going for me here at university to get into Tarleton for their ROTC. Like when we moved out of winter, we didn't know that we were going to move out because at the time our mom was off work. I guess one day the rent man, he went to court with it and he didn't want to stand there no more. They only gave us 24 hours to get all of our stuff and go. We lost a lot of stuff in that house. I've always told myself that I'm going to grow up, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to be in the Marine Corps. I was going to come out and get something like a FBI job or something. And within that time, I was going to buy like the biggest house that I could get. So if my mom, brother, or sister ever fell back and they just needed a place to come back to, that would be my house. You can ask anybody at school about me. Everybody say, Ira, he's always happy. He's always smiling. He doesn't seem like anything happens at home. But no one really knows his inside story except teachers and people that are older than me. I've been at this since I've been 13. And it's 5 years of running around and all that. I've been at it, kept at it. And I'm still trucking and ain't letting nothing stop me yet.
just being present as a parent. That is the hardest part of parenting when you're homeless.
For me, the hardest thing was trying to keep your child safe and familiar with as much as you possibly can, during a very unfamiliar and unstable time.
Keeping my children safe was my number one priority. That was like one of my biggest fears, because it definitely happened too in the shelter, having fear to be kicked out, because they have all these rules in the shelter, especially when you're trying to survive and you're a single parent just trying to take care of your children. It's kind of hard for you to maintain housing with the rules that they have in place.
So letting her know that even though things seem a little wonky or crazy right now, that everything's gonna be okay. Just trust mom. And
you're also trying to figure out, how long can we be in this place? How can we can we be in that place? And, you have to prepare yourself for, how am I going to present this to the kids when we have to move again?
You're trying to figure out what the hell you're going to do. Who do I talk to? Where do I go to? Like, what's going to happen next week? What's going to happen 2 days from now? What's going to happen over the weekend when I can't feed my kid because I no longer have my house? It was just a constant churning. It's just terrible. It really is just a horrible experience. But
so you have to be diligent and focused on the what if. There is not a single moment you feel like you can take your guard down. And so that, that passes on to the kids. We didn't choose to be this way. They think we did. You chose not to work, or you chose not to pay your bills, or you chose not to try, or you chose not to keep your relationship with somebody that was providing for you.
And nobody in their right mind would choose to walk out there not knowing what's out there, if they're going to have any kind of support or not, family or not, shelters or not, with children. Because, and then you're constantly wondering if your kid will get taken away if they find out,
Nobody chooses to live in a victim state. Something happened and we survive it. And we survive, the trauma, and we try to break the cycles. And some of us live in an area where there's just no support services. There's no support system, where you have no family. We are doing the best that we can with what we have, putting our kids first in the only ways that we know how. Initially, you just want to say, don't quit, don't give up, but we all get to that point where we just feel like, I'm tired, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. And it's not just a tired, it's a drained, tired.
I wanted to give up many times. I thought that it would never get better, but it will get better. You just got to stay focused, and you got to keep your head held high and never give up, and make sure that you be the best inspiration for your child. You make sure you live righteous and you do the right thing and teach your children the right thing.
Thank you so much for being here. So tell us a little bit who you're with.
Yeah, I'm here with the National Union of the Homeless, and specifically the ACT UP Philly Homeless Union, which founded about 2.5 years ago. It grew out of ACT UP Philadelphia. We were there was a death in a homeless shelter due to COVID. They were forcing people indoors out of encampments, and one of the folks moving in was sick. It caused an outbreak in a shelter for people with compromised immune systems, and they didn't have like a plan in place of testing and isolation and quarantine. So there was an outbreak, somebody died, and we went to have a protest during COVID at the home of the head of Office of Homeless Services. And she said, why don't you start meeting with us regularly to talk about your concerns? And we pulled together a group of people who were currently living in shelters or recently got housing, permanent supportive housing through the shelter system, and did advocacy training together and sort of prepped for these meetings. And we met with folks and we brought solutions. And we were literally told, well, the concerns of people in the shelters, that's not my job to address.
Wow.
From the head of the Office of Homeless Services. And we said, well, we can't meet with you and have these conversations if that's not your job to address. And so we took one of the ideas that we had, which was when folks come into the shelter system, they should have a warm greeting by someone who cares about them, not a security guard saying, put your stuff on the belt.
Right.
So every Friday now, outside of the Office of Homeless Services Intake Center, we have coffee and snacks and information, and we just talk to people about what they're going through and try and be that warm hand. And we grew from there to a dozen people who are organizing.
Right. Well, thank you, Max. I know this is really short and everything, but I think it's really important. You all are, there's several of you here, and we really appreciate you being here, being a support. And with that, I think we're going to turn it over. We're going to hear some more videos of folks who are experiencing homelessness, being unhoused, and we'll be back live soon. Thanks. Okay, I'm just going to stand right here.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I knew had to bring, I kept with me, and it didn't break, so that was a good thing. Well, when we came, everybody just had a backpack. You know, you just take what you need, and because we couldn't afford, to be getting a U-Haul and everything. There was 9 of us, and my sister, the place was a 2-bedroom, so it was tight, it was crowded. We were scattered from my sister's to my niece's house, and so all of us, we were never together. My son used to say, you know what, I don't feel right not going to school. I need to go to school. So it was either, you could stay with them for free and kids could do online, but my kids needed to be, in school. I just grabbed all my kids and we started looking at different places. We couldn't find any place. So we went to a motel. We were there for 4 months. That was very expensive. That was where all of our money went. You know, and it was bad because I know the kids needed things. I had to pay for the motel, so we know, you know, where we're going to sleep tonight. There was times when we did have to check out, and I would tell the kids, you know, a lot of times you have to go to school, and just so they could get their mind off everything else. There was times I had to lie to them and tell them, you know, oh, we're going to have to leave today. I said, no, we don't need to leave today, but maybe we could find something different. And it was lying because I knew we had to leave and I didn't have the money to pay. The uncertainty and the stress of, you know, not knowing where we're going to go. Kids would go to school. My 9-year-old grandson would say, Grandma, where are we going? You know, where are we going to be tonight? I said, I don't know, but it would be someplace good. I promise. I said, don't worry, because that's my job. It was hard.
I left an abusive relationship that I'd been in for 8 years. And one day I got kicked in my kidney real hard, and it dropped me to the floor. And that's when I said that was enough. I walked out, me and my kids. We didn't have any belongings with us. It was just us. We left. So we were sleeping on friends' couches that could pick us up from wherever we were previously staying, or towards the end of January, beginning of February, we were able to stay in a hotel for like maybe a week. Then went back to couch to couch to couch to couch. And I mean, with 5 of us, 6 of us, 7 of us, because I have a granddaughter, it's really, really hard.
You fill application, everybody wants a fee. There's a lot of scams out there. It's just, it's hard. It really is. You know, a lot of people don't want to rent without having 3 times your income or asking a lot more for their properties, you know. But nowadays to find a place, it's hard. Every day that I get up and start looking, then you see the same listing in the paper and the web, and there's nothing new. It's either a scam or it's already been rented, or you don't make enough money, or you don't pass the background. And that's you know, and they want application fees. Now that my money's almost gone, I'm like, what are we gonna do for tomorrow? How is tomorrow gonna get paid? Where are we gonna stay? You know what I mean? I'm like, it's crazy.
I think the most difficult part of having the kids, and then before they got taken, and living in somebody else's house with them, is kind of like walk on eggshells, I guess, around people, or kind of feeling like an inadequate mother for not being able to provide for them. And our addictions, we didn't have our marriage. It had fallen to the wayside. We went our separate ways.
I got custody of my kids in end of 2019. When I first got them back, that was one of the hurdles. Like, I came into transitional housing, and the transition from them going from CYFD custody to my custody was supposed to be like a 2 or 3 month transition. The transition ended up happening within a month. The sober living houses, they have one that's for women and children, and they have one just for women, and they have one for men, but they don't have one for men and their children.
Came in to the Hawthorne. They said we have 90 days. We didn't have renter's insurance, so the fact that we probably weren't gonna get, you know, our couch, all of our belongings, you know, that we just moved in, recovered because of that. I think a lot of it is just we take it one day at a time, because we didn't know what was coming, you know, the next day, period.
I moved back in with the kids and him, and it was like our family was just reunited again.
tea, I get SNAP. But everything is so expensive, and we lived on microwave food forever. And I said I never want, to eat that again. But we had people, bringing us food, and that was what was the best thing ever. That was the main reasons why they had to go to school. You get a hot breakfast, you get hot lunch. Because when you come home, it might be whatever we could get that day.
The hotels were not the best. It was hard because we didn't have a stove, so typically I'm a cooker, I like to prepare meals, and so being in a hotel, there's no stove. So it was, the kids are like, well, we're hungry.
Not only worrying about food and money, and it's also their safety. So we went from motel to motel to motel, and there was a few of them that I would not recommend. There was just sleepless nights. We even used to put furniture in front of the door. It's scary. There was so much going on, but with the kids, they didn't sleep too well. They had to get up and go to school, but they had to just make it work. And that was what I always tell them. I'm sorry, we just got to make it work. It's something I never, ever want to experience again. I was dying inside.
And to stay strong in front of my kids was probably the hardest part, because I do my best to make sure that my kids don't have to feel the stress that I feel or see the struggles that I have to struggle with.
Because it affects them, Sorry, get emotional about that. And I think because they get upset, and then we're stuffed in the car, and it's like we're in a borrowed car on top of that. I don't know. It's just hard.
Or I'll be sitting somewhere, waiting for my kids to get out of school, and I pick them up, and it was just so hard because I had to play things off. Oh, we're gonna go to the park, or we're just gonna go for a ride. We're gonna go up to the mountains, and deep down, I knew because we had no place to go. That was hard.
Asking for help was essential to, getting the kids clothes on their back and shoes on their feet, jackets, because it was cold. It was wintertime.
I really commend the schools on, through this whole process when they were going through CYFD. And when I first got them back, the teachers really helped me out a lot with when it came to homework. They would send extra notes, or they would give me phone calls. And I think at times they seen my struggles. And that's why I love the school the kids go to, because it's not just the kids they pay attention to, because they invest not only into the kids, but into us too.
Because I looked into shelters. They denied me because I didn't have birth certificates. I didn't have birth certificates because my abuser controlled them all. The homeless liaison, he helped with getting them birth certificates for my kids again. They want all kinds of documentation when your abuser controls literally every aspect of every situation and everything of your life. You don't have access to any of that. A lot of places don't understand that. The homeless liaison, he helped with getting them clothes so they could start school, because my ex kept we had nothing. We had no clothes. We had nothing. I couldn't send my kids to school in the same clothes day after day. I didn't have the resources to wash the clothes. They asked how could they get him transferred to a new school, but I didn't have a school I could even put him in. I would have rather him stay in that school even if he wasn't going, so that it wouldn't be from school to school to school, and I would look even more inconsistent as far as, CYFD or the schools or anybody for that matter.
They were at a point in CYFD custody where they were getting ready to adopt them out if we didn't get a home.
from the homelessness to the losing our kids to the state to the getting them back and overcoming addiction and breaking the chains that were put on our family, and I think our hearts are with being a light for other people that struggle.
The time that we had to stay in the car, that I finally called the Community of Hope. And they said they were going to help, but, they were really busy. And honestly, just out of the blue, I got a call, saying, we have a house, it's a 4-bedroom house, but you could come and look at it and tell me if you love it. And I just said, I already love it. Anything is better than I love it already. And they kind of laughed, and we came to see it, and we signed everything right there. And it took a little bit longer than we thought. They took over a month. December 22nd, we came to look at this house. Yeah, we came January 25th, and I just can't describe it. I mean, really, just to have your own place, it's awesome. The first day or two, when we got the place, they had their friends come over. And that was such a big deal for them, because for them to say they live in a motel is something they didn't tell a lot of their friends at school. It was hard for my daughter, because some kids were figuring out that, oh, you're homeless and you live in a motel. And she was heartbroken coming home. Kids were teasing her. And one of the girls actually came up to her and she said, we lived at that same motel for almost 3 years. The landlord provided the furniture that we have in the kitchen now. I mean, we came and there was beds in there. And then we also got help from the Salvation Army. What else was it? Kitchen stuff. We got through it. It was very hard, but we got through it. And it wasn't because of just us, it's because the whole community helped. Because of them, we have furniture, they brought food, they bought snacks. It was just the whole community did it, and we're so grateful for that. It was really hard. It was really hard. I went through it, and I just never want to do it again. We want to help people that are going through it now, because I know there's a lot of people out there, and women and kids is what really gets me the most. It's not their fault that they didn't ask for any of it, but things happen sometimes, and we just got to work through to make it better.
For youth and young adult discipleship here in southeastern Pennsylvania Synod, and Philadelphia is part of that. I live in Philadelphia, and I am a part of a community called the Welcome Church. It is a church without walls, and
Okay, start over. Okay. That is the beauty of being live. We're going to start fresh.
So one of the real gifts of being a part of this Memorial Blanket Initiative is that we have many partners that make this happen. And so I had the opportunity to invite the Philadelphia Regional Lutheran Bishop's Office to be a part of this. And so when I called them, they said yes. And I was introduced to Pastor Skyle, who has become one of my new BFFs here on the ground here in Philadelphia. But you yourself have made blankets. You are connected to a church without walls. You yourself know what it's like to minister and to serve those that are experiencing homelessness. So I am excited to welcome you. So if you could just give us a little bit of your background and then, well, why you said yes.
Well, I've lived in Philadelphia most of my adult life, and it is a place that I love. The Church Without Walls is called the Welcome Church, and everyone is welcome there. Everyone, but it is especially welcoming and inviting for those who are unhoused or in transitional housing. And it's a wonderful community. I can't even begin to describe. They have two pastors, Pastor Shawnall and Pastor Violet, who are who really connect with those people who are unhoused, and they give them space to come and be. So every day they're in a different place because no walls, but they may be at one church one day, and they may be at another organization another day. So they get a place to bring people inside so that they're not out in the elements.
So when I called you and you were like super quick to say yes, why was that? What excited you about this opportunity?
Well, for one thing, it's always nice to work with someone from another synod, but I think that the whole point of bringing awareness to homelessness is something that's just close to my heart. I get to know the people who are on the street near where I live, and I know some of them by name. So it's just something that, for my heart, anything that has to do with people who are unhoused or need food or whatever the need is, that's where I think God calls me to be.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your work to get us here today and for the blankets that you brought. And we're now going to turn it back over to some more voices of those who have experienced homelessness. Okay.
One for the team.
You're right. Thank you. I know.
We are we're there, and I am really happy to be talking with our next interview, who is Chris Olson, who is up in Bangor, Maine. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Chris, why don't you tell us who you with?
I started a furniture bank a little over 13 years ago. And it originally grew out of what I had done 10 years before for my 40th birthday, was to raise money for the Bangor area homeless shelter. And 10 years later, when I was turning 50, I came to find out that people moving out of the shelter were moving into empty apartments. No beds, no dressers, furniture, any of that. And all I could think of was like, I couldn't imagine starting over, sleeping on the floor, not being able to have anything to cook with. And we branched out into adaptive equipment now as well.
Wow, that's incredible.
incredible. So
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about maybe how many people have you been able to help out?
Nowadays we serve about 1,000 people a year. We work with over 70 agencies, and we help anybody in Maine. There are several other similar programs around the state. There's one in Augusta. There's one down in Westbrook, but unfortunately the one in Westbrook only serves the one county down there. And there are two in our more northernmost county, Aroostook County. But we're all talking with each other, and we're hoping to expand the idea. It's the same idea as a food pantry, except we give out furniture and adaptive equipment pretty much.
So what would adaptive equipment be? What is that?
Oh, we've had everything from hospital beds and Hoyer lifts to canes to bed rails, any sorts of things like that, because a lot of people, after they get out of the hospital, they either don't have that equipment covered by insurance, or the turnaround time to get it leaves them without for a long period of time. Recently, a lady needed a nebulizer, and hers is about 16 years old, and she wanted one for her friend because they've been sharing the old one. She gave the new one to her friend, and I was so impressed with her selflessness that I decided that I'm going to get her one as well. But there's a lot of need out there where things fall short, for insurance coverage, and it's incredible how many things come together when people really need the help.
Right. So where does all the furniture and all of that come from?
We live in an extremely giving state, probably like where you are now. We get furniture a lot of times from hotels. We get furniture from individuals. A lot of times when people are combining households, or when somebody passes away. And the fact that we give everything away, people love that fact. We just try to stress to people that although we are all volunteer, no one's paid, and then we give everything away, there's still a cost for us to do business.
Of course. So do you then also deliver the furniture, or do people come to get it, or how does that work?
They actually come to get it. When we started, we asked them to come with their caseworker. Nowadays, we don't as much. We help a lot of people. Good example, one of the reasons we don't deliver, cost is one. But when we first started, we had some volunteers delivering to people that were escaping domestic violence. And they are in safe houses. And this person that would help us would recruit people from the shelter. And the confidentiality is really important, because if somebody is in a safe house, the key word is safe.
Right. Of course, that would be quite a challenge out there. Absolutely. When I think about this, what you're doing, first of all, thank you so much for what you're doing.
Appreciate that.
I've encountered a lot of folks who are unhoused, and through a variety of different things that I've been doing, including in my previous call, I was serving a church, and we would be doing ministry over at a truck stop, and as there's people who live in their vehicles in the parking lot, and then they would get some help, they'd be able to move into an apartment, and then it was the scramble to find out where can we find stuff, and that was always a huge challenge. And so I just have to say that what you're doing, boy, that's a huge thing. I would imagine that you work with a lot of partners.
We do. We
tell us a little bit about that.
I certainly can. We work with over 70 agencies. And something to share with you and share with all the viewers is FurnitureBanks.org. That's FurnitureBanks.org. It's a nonprofit that takes all of our websites and posts them. To give you an idea, we have a lot of small world stories, but Cadillac Mountain is in Acadia National Park. Long story short, went there on the anniversary of our program, which was my birthday. It was really crowded. I had somebody on my back bumper, so I couldn't park. I was going to move. This guy walks up out of nowhere. Long story short, he volunteers in Minnesota for the largest furniture bank in all of North America. I mean, these small world things happen all the time. But we do work anybody and everybody. We don't turn anybody away. And the weird thing is, when we really need something, a lot of times it'll show up the next day. No joke.
Sure.
And we also use social media. If there's something that's unique that we can't find, We've actually found a guitar for a lady that was part of her therapy.
Wow.
The lady donating it had her parents give it to her. She had no interest in playing. Brand new Ibanez case, strings, and tuners. Like, would you like it? It's like, yeah. And we also purchase things. Some things we can't give away used, especially when it comes to child safety seats, cribs. We had one lady who was escaping domestic violence. She had 3 kids. One was a 4-month-old. She needed a crib, so we ordered a new one through Walmart, and it was delivered right to her home where she was staying. You know, there's a need out there. I grew up, I never knew want for anything. I got bullied, yes, and I went through a lot with that. But when it came to having a roof over my head and a hot meal and a warm bed, and I cannot begin to fathom what people go through. And I've talked with a lot of homeless people in Bangor when we've done events, and it amazes me. I stayed one night at a shelter down in Boston when I took off from school as a teenager, and I was intimidated. But on the other hand, I'm like, my God, I'm so lucky to live in this day and age where there is such a thing as a shelter. Right. It's incredible. And one of the things that we're working on up here is to try to reduce the stigma, because when I've done fundraising for all ages and all demographics, and one of the hardest to raise money for is people in recovery. Another one that's hard to raise money for are the elderly, which makes no sense. But when you think about it, people don't want to think about getting older. And a lot of times they don't stop and think about the expression, life is a journey, not a destination. If somebody's car is broken down on the side of the road, you pull over and you help them, or you call for help. You don't stop and berate them and spit on them. Why should it be any different with somebody struggling? It really shouldn't be. We have a county-wide group now that was from the American Rescue Plan Act. We've helped divvy up the money from the county. And the 3 major things are really intertwined: homeless crisis, access to good mental health services, and access to substance abuse services. And yet those are all intertwined, you know, and people need to understand that we're all God's kids, and some things happen, and there are a lot of factors. But what we're going to be trying to do after the first of the year is a campaign to increase empathy and reduce stigma.
That's really incredible and really good to hear. And, you know, it's reminding me of so many different things. You're talking about how interrelated all these subjects are. It's, you know, you're talking about things that I think also deal with what you're talking about is the stigma that goes along with homelessness. You know, there's the assumption that folks make if they're not informed that you know, it's, if somebody is unhoused, clearly they must have
their fault.
You're right. It must be their fault. It's the simple way of doing it. And I think what you had said really kind of goes into that is we don't want to think about how, like, my gosh, this could happen to us. It could happen to anybody.
Right.
So very easily.
And the analogy, and then a good analogy to look at is if you look at the number of homeless people. Now, if they weren't homeless, if they all had a disease like cancer,
right,
people would be falling all over themselves to help them.
Right.
So why is it any different for people that I mean, there's certain times they're perfect storms. I lost a brother back in February to his alcoholism. He was a brilliant man. He was a great contractor. He had 5 great adult kids. He has 6 grandkids, and he just could not stop. He destroyed his liver. And it still breaks my heart because the partner he was with wouldn't stop drinking. She wouldn't encourage him to go to AA.
Wow.
There's a community in recovery up here. I used to work at a place called Hope House years ago. I used to be a fundraiser for them. And there's so many options now for people to get help that when you see somebody go down the tubes like that, it's like, damn, you know, that never should have happened. It's the best way to put it, I guess.
Yeah. Right. There's a lot of those situations of that should have never happened. I've been saying a lot of times that, you know, given the fact that we're the richest nation in human history, you know, this is the idea of people being unhoused should never happen. And especially as I'm standing out here in Philadelphia and it's windy, and which makes it even colder. Clearly I'm using some of the blankets right now. You know, I'm like, this is great that we're here, we're doing this and we're talking with you. But at the same time, I would imagine you probably feel like this should not have to happen. Like what you're doing shouldn't have to happen.
Here's a good example. We shouldn't have any problem with people that are successful and make money, but there's a great meme and it says something to the effect of, if a chimpanzee hoarded all the bananas to the point where all the other chimps starved to death, we'd be studying that chimp. By the same token, with humans, if somebody does that, they're on the cover of Forbes magazine, and that's wrong. You know, greed is a horrible thing, and I got to give kudos for the people that do give back. A great example is LeBron James. There's a guy who didn't go to college. He's turned around and he's given all these young people who had no resources to pay for college, help them get into college and get an education, and can give back to the community. And it's truly an investment. And I loved when I've talked to a lot of homeless people. I met one gentleman on Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays. He was out on the street. He would go get his guitar out of wherever he stashed it. He'd go to this restaurant and sit in on jam sessions playing his guitar. And it breaks my heart when I think about the fact that there's somebody's son or daughter, brother or sister, or even parent. There's a lady that's on Invisible People years ago that was getting treatments out in Seattle, but had no place to stay and was living under a bridge. Come to find out, she is now an advocate, and she was sitting in on the Penobscot County care meetings, and one day it hit me. It's like, oh my God, that's the same lady that was smiling and happy being interviewed while living under a bridge. And Seattle is where where the expression Skid Row comes from.
Right. Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much. Unfortunately, that was a quick 15 minutes. It's kind of how this works, but I really appreciate you coming on, telling us what you're doing, and boy, bless you for all that you're doing out there in Bangor.
And my wife was happy to make quilts again this year, and it's wonderful to see that. You have a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. You as well. And we will continue on with our next video.
Do you want my battery? You try.
There's no way. We can't get out. So in case of a big storm, here we are. and plus it's not theirs, they're renting, and the owner doesn't want no more than 2 people, so that's another thing.
Well, when I graduate, I want to go to college, and I want to study forensic science. I want to be like a forensic anthropologist. That's like a real job. But like my dream job is to become like a music producer and work with music. But that's like 1 in a million for some weird But a real job that I want to get is forensic anthropology. Work with that.
USC. I want to be a social worker for child services because I think all kids should have help because not every person has the same advantage as others do. So I would help the kids, would have problems and issues. So I think since I've already been through that, I know what it is. So I want to be a social worker for to help the children and parents in need, like for programs and stuff like that, so they can get help. It's because I think everybody should be happy in this world. Talk to their students to know, like if they see an issue, just to talk to them, to not think it's a bad thing or they don't want to do it. It's just that there's problems.
Yeah.
They might seem happy in school, they might look happy, but at their house they have problems. It happens to any person.
Like we act happy at school, but the teachers see us like good kids. My teachers see me as a good kid, but they don't really know the life that I lived in. Only my choir teacher knows because he came to drop me off once over here. I was like, oh yeah, that's my house. That's my.
Like us poor people, I guess that's a good thing. Being poor, I don't want nothing no more because being poor, we see everything like, oh, we need to take care of it. So like we clean and we appreciate what we have.
Because I don't really care what anyone says. Like you wouldn't survive 2 days in my shoes anyway. So why do I even care what you say?
Like it goes through this year, comes out to the other one. We don't waste our time on that. But it's just dumb. Like their words, we don't care what they say. We don't care what no one says because we know we're gonna be someone in life. So the day that we're coming out with a diploma and they're still stuck there, not passing, who's gonna be better, them or us? If we lower ourselves to them, we're just gonna cause problems, and we can just walk away from the situation, ignore them.
It's not that hard.
And just look at them and ignore them. Like if you ignore them, they're gonna be the stupid one.
What happened is if they know that we're here, they were evict them because he only wants 2 people because it's a small mobile home. But they're making me a favor to be here because I don't have any other way of going where without no income, no job, no car, and with all these children, and unable to get housing because they gave me a letter for housing, but because I don't have ID from Texas.
It was me, my 2-year-old, and my 7-year-old. We slept in my vehicle, and we got a hotel room every handful of days when school was starting. Just trying to find a place to even park for the night, get a couple hours shut-eye, making sure the kids were going to be safe.
I actually grew up homeless most of my life, but once I got married and I established a family and I became a mother, I never thought that sense of security would be ripped from me and my children again. Me and their father separated back in 2017, which left me homeless. And so I was couch hopping with family, and we moved in with my brother. And me and my 3 kids shared a room. It's a 2-bedroom trailer, and it's scary, you know, especially being a mother with 3 kids, and you're relying on somebody else's for a roof and security over your own children's head. It was like walking on eggshells constantly. It's just that fear that, you know, you have no control over your home or your environment or your safety or security for your children. So
when we had no place to go, literally no place to go, and the cost of living was so ridiculous, we were in a pickle. It was so embarrassing anyway to have to tell somebody what we were going through. And at this point, my very depressed husband was ready to divorce, and that put more on our children. I think it was just him at his lowest of low and felt like we deserved better, but we just wanted our family to be together. All sorts of things were hitting us at one time, and I think our family was just losing hope. And as a mom, I'm trying to keep it together and not let my kids see my worry or my tears.
my kids lost their home and their security, you know, and it was I made the choice to leave from, you know, but I didn't realize I would rock my kids' security like that as much as it did for as long as it did. And so, you know, I guess I had this naivety that I could instantly get a home and do it all on my own, and it just wasn't that easy.
Having them at the same school without transferring them from place to place has been wonderful, because then they've had the same friends, the same teachers. They haven't had to build new relationships with people or with teachers.
They changed schools quite a few times. They had to change around a lot due to just finding a home, you know. It was really heartbreaking for them. My daughter still talks about her best friend that she met in kindergarten, or her best friend that she met in Head Start, and they develop these emotional attachments with friends, but they're not able to really develop them fully, or, you know, they go through constant loss of these relationships they build, and they're transitioning schools and different homes, and so, you know, it was really hard on them.
So I got a call from the district saying, hey, Tori's going to be at this school this year, right? And they asked me my address, and I told them I didn't have an address. They offered to keep Tori in the same school she was in last year to keep consistency. I told them, yes, please, that would be amazing. When they offered that, I know it took a lot of stress off of me and my daughter.
It makes you feel like a failure sometimes, because you aren't able to provide the basic things that your children need. But then at the end of the day, you get to see how happy they are, even with just minimal things, with just each other and love.
Like, I know people out there say, oh, being homeless is controllable, just pay your bills. There's some things that's just not controllable. There's a lot more help out there than I thought there would be.
Something I learned about homelessness is it can happen to anyone. Compassion breeds compassion, and kindness breeds kindness.
Reach out to the people in your schools. You'd be surprised what the school's able to help you with. The districts that have these programs are amazing. They are truly a lifesaver.
Good afternoon and welcome back live here at Philly. Here we are at Independence Mall. I am excited to welcome Sonia Pizzi. Good afternoon, Sonia. Thank you for being here.
There. Good afternoon.
Yes. So Sonia, please tell us who you are and tell us why you are with us this afternoon.
Sure. I'm Sonia Pizzi. I am the Region 3 coordinator in Pennsylvania for the Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness program. And in Region 3, we call it Heck Yeah. And the reason that I'm here is to talk about what you basically just saw in the video that folks saw through the live feed, which is about the McKinney-Vento Act and how we can assist in the education field for students experiencing homelessness and the importance of school and stability.
Oh, that is fantastic. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us all about what you are doing and about the impact that you are making?
Well, it's hard to measure impact other than to say that the goal of McKinney-Vento is to make sure that any student who's experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity and all of those things can have consistency and stability at school. So they may be traveling couch to couch, hotel to hotel, doubled up with family here or there and out of their original school district. But I want to make sure that our liaisons at every school district knows that they can stay in their school, because that's the one place 5 days a week, 6-7 hours a day, that they can have some just time to just be kids, to just be students, to just allow some bit of normalcy, right? And they can get breakfast, they can get lunch, they can get a lot of resources that can help them outside of school, such as laundry facilities, being able to wash their clothes, for the family to be able to wash that without having to worry about using funds to do that, to have someone, to have a kind ear to talk to help share resources, and to let the students know that you can participate in extracurricular activities, sports, theater, science, debate. All of those things are such a great community for a student, and we want to make sure that we are setting these students up for every success possible by removing all educational barriers that may present itself due to their housing insecurity.
Oh my gosh, Sonia, that is such a gift. So my guess is that you don't do this work alone. So what does it take to make this happen?
So in my region office, it is myself and my colleague, Missy Gosnell, and we are then responsible for the 8 counties that we serve in Region 3, and that's over 50 school districts. So with that, we have every school district has a liaison, and the liaison has more than just one hat. So while they're the education liaison, they're also multiple people. They could be a superintendent, a social worker, a building principal, a teacher, a nurse, all of those things. But it's my job to make sure that they know about the McKinney-Vento Act and to raise awareness and educate as many people as possible about the McKinney-Vento Act so that everybody has help in doing this. Because you're right, we can't do this alone, and we know that we are under identifying for a multitude of reasons, but we are also getting better at being able to identify and getting the resources out to the students and the families.
So Sonia, I'm wondering, how did you get involved in this work? How did this start for you?
It honestly just kind of fell in my lap. So at the age of 25, I've been trying to make myself unemployed for the last 29 years, because this didn't have to be a job, right? And I have a very diverse background and degree with outdoor education, sociology, psychology, and Outward Bound, and all of those just kind of help me to be able to create what the diversity of this population, and to have this program be not just about Bikini Bento, but how can we help these students beyond giving them a backpack? Because giving them a backpack is not going to make everything jolly and right. Not that I can make anything jolly and right, but when I started it, it was, okay, how do we figure this out? How do we make sure that we are getting to the students, that we are getting students and families to trust who we are? And then how do we get other adults to be trusted adults for these students to be a part of? Because if there isn't a trusted adult in the student's life or the family's life, then they're not going to want to talk to anybody in the school district. And we know that lying is a trauma response, and also, sometimes you just don't want to tell your story. There are a lot of stigmas attached to homelessness, and there are a lot of judgments and biases. And one of the things that I talk about is we got to put those at the door. So I've evolved over the 29 years as to how that can look like in having folks be served with this and doing Bikini Bento. And the thing that keeps me grounded and humbled and wanting to do this more is that I do outreaches to unaccompanied teenagers who are experiencing housing instability, and that came from a love from when I graduated college, I wanted to work with at-risk youth. So that was kind of that helped with that part of it, and then all the other stuff just kind of got me into the door. And then I just evolved the program into what it looks like today. And Pennsylvania went from district-wide grants to region-wide grants, and that allows us to cover all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. And we have 8 regions, and it's a great approach to make sure that every school district has someone like a region coordinator who they can talk to.
That is fantastic. So if you were to just estimate how many people across the state are involved in this.
How many people across the state are involved in, I'm sorry, you cut out in the last little bit there.
Yeah, that help make this happen in all of these counties, these regions. How many people are actively doing this work?
Oh, I don't think that's an easy number to define. I can tell you that there's 8 regional coordinators, 8 regional offices. Some offices have multitude of people. Some offices, like myself, just have one additional person with them. Then we have a liaison in every single school district. And then depending on the school district, they have multiple people in the school district who are also trained in that. Outside of that, we have community agencies that we work with, such as, the different housing authorities and the different housing programs, because those are the resources that we try to connect the families to. We also work with community places like churches and scout groups and those types of places who want to donate different in-kind donations, where it is we can only do educational supplies, but they need hygiene items, or they need gifts for this holiday season, but also we need things beyond Christmas. We need things beyond these next 2 weeks. We need things year round. So to be able to have those connections is great. So it's hundreds, and I would dare say thousands, because we have over the last official numbers, statistics for students experiencing homelessness that were identified is over 47,000, and that was from the 22-23 school year.
Wow.
I know that is a low estimate. It's a low estimate because we just can't identify them all. Not everybody wants to be identified, all of that. But I think it's a testament to how many people have made blankets, how many people they're involved. We just you can't count, but there's so many people with so many kind hearts and who want to help, and we can help direct how they can help, because we never want to say no to a donation. But there are times where we need to say, well, rather than this type of donation, we can do the backpacks. Can you do these hygiene items? Can you do this gift card to a gas station? Can you do this? And it really does take all of us just working together.
Sure. And I know you said it's really difficult to kind of measure the impact, but you named you think there's 47,000 students that kind of qualify for this need. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, yes, there were over 47,000 that did qualify for this that were identified under McKinney-Vento, and that was in 2022-2023 school year. And the unofficial count for 23-24 is over 50,000. You know, that's not official until we look at that, but it's, you know, definitely over 50,000. We started an awareness campaign 11 years ago, and when we started 11 years ago, we had identified 19,000 students. So in 11 years, it's grown that much in terms of good identification, but also the need is just continues as housing market just increasingly gets more expensive.
Yes, absolutely. So you named the potential for donations and things like that. Are there ways that people that are listening that hear this even later, if they want to get involved or help or support, that they can get connected to you?
Yeah, there's a link that we can set up, that Max can set up through the Charles Bruce Foundation. That's the Center for Schools and Communities, and you can go to a search where you can put in your zip code, and it'll take you to one of us regional coordinators or myself, and I can put the right people in contact. So like in Philadelphia, it's Colleen at the school district. I would recommend too just reaching out to your local school district and asking them what they need. In my case, a lot of the times what I can really use, that because we can't use the funds to purchase, are gift cards. And sometimes it's hard for people to want to give gift cards because they want to have actual things, and that's fine. Again, we're never saying no to a donation, but gift cards are helpful in a number of ways. For instance, if we have a gift card to a Rudders or a Sheetz, it allows like the unaccompanied youth that I work with to be able to go and get food, and food is cheaper at a convenience store than it is at like McDonald's not right now. So, but also gift cards to those places and grocery stores and those types of places too. And parents who need gas outside of going to school, helping their students go to school, that having those different gift cards can help with that. And it also provides dignity for these students and families to be able to purchase what they want versus always, you know, here's some gently use this or gently use that, and you don't have an option to really pick out what you would like. And we'd like to be able to give dignity where we can.
No, absolutely. And so, I mean, one of the goals of the Memorial Blanket is to help, humanize this aspect of those that are experiencing homelessness, and for them to know that, like, we see them, we love them, they are heard and loved. And so I'm wondering, like, as you've worked in this, are there stories, is there an impactful story that you could share about the work that you have done, a life that has been changed that you know of firsthand?
Sure. I don't know how many times I share this, but this is one of my, I have so many stories because I work with unaccompanied teens, and I do that for some very selfish reasons, because it reminds me why I'm doing this, and it reminds me that there's a purpose. So a few years ago, pre-COVID, I used to have our teenagers, the teenagers that outreaches to, volunteer. And I had a young man who was just starting out, and he was getting ready to drop out of school, and I was like, let's meet tomorrow. Give me tomorrow. And then he eventually kept giving me tomorrow, and I said, okay, now it's time for you to volunteer. And he started volunteering at the senior center. Well, he didn't want to volunteer at the senior center because he's like, you want me to volunteer at a place where a bunch of old white people are, and I'm an African American boy. You're setting me up for failure, kind of thing. So I'm like, no, you're gonna be fine. Cut to, that was in the fall, cut to Memorial or Martin Luther King Day, and I usually go and meet the kids who are volunteering. And I went to the senior center, and he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah. I walk in, and I felt like I was walking into the senior center with a rock star. People were high-fiving him. People were like, saying how great it was to see them. And he not only stayed in school the following year, he did dual enrollment where he did community college classes as well as high school. And he works at that senior center and is in charge of doing activities at the senior center and is doing a model program for the country. And that's the impact that school has. That had he not had someone who said, let's go today. Let's tomorrow. How about show up tomorrow? I'll bribe you with pizza. How about show up, next week and I'll bribe you with this. And how about you volunteer, because let's give you a bigger sense of purpose. And now he is just, he didn't, I always say I'm going to believe in them until they believe in themselves. And that was just one of the greatest things that I've been a part of.
Oh my goodness, that is such a beautiful story and such a beautiful testament to accompanying someone and loving them into a new place. Just in our final few minutes here, Sonia, is there just anything about your mission that you want to name or share that you haven't already?
I believe other people have said this, is we really need to meet people where they are. When I talk about keeping your judgments and opinions and your, things to yourself, I say to my liaisons that sometimes I have to get involved because I have to remove the emotion, because sometimes people take things personally, like they're lying to me, and that's why are they lying to me? I'm trying to help them, and they just take things very personally. It's like, we can't take things personally. There's a reason that they're going through a lot of stuff. They're going through trauma, they're going through all of this, and their trauma responses are going to come out however they come out. Yet there is always good. There's always hope. There's always potential. And we are the ones as educators who are to help them see that and to help guide them. And there are difficult people, absolutely, but there are difficult people in every walk of life. So to say that it's only those who are experiencing housing insecurity is a falsehood, and is there's a lot of ego involved in that. So you got to remove the ego on that. And you have to just be able to say, I'm willing to help you. There's no strings attached, other than I want you to go to school, and here's how I can help you succeed in school, and here's what success can look like for you. Success can look like you got to school on time today. Success can look like you got to school every day this week. Ultimate success is to graduate from high school.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Well, Sonia, I want to thank you for showing up today. I want to thank you for the many ways that you are contributing to making a difference and true transformation for those that experience homelessness. So from sunny, breezy Philadelphia, thank you again. And we are looking forward to continued partnership and working for this for everyone.
All right. Well, thank you. And please stay warm, everybody. And great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So again, we are out.
Hundreds of little nomads in America, sleeping in the backs of cars, on floors in welfare offices, or in shelters 5 to a room. What would it mean to spend your childhood drifting from one strange bed to another, waking in the morning to try and figure out where you'd landed today without those things that confer security and happiness? A picture on the wall, a certain slant of light through a curtained window. Give me you're tired, you're poor, it says on the base of the Statue of Liberty to welcome foreigners. Oh, but they are already here, the small refugees from the ruin of the American dream, even if you cannot see them. Scattered like seeds strewn across the land, millions of Americans hidden in crevices of small towns, rural communities, and megacities, adrift and destitute.
Is for
alligator.
Okay, put that
down right there. See. Now, what comes next?
Schools have identified 1 million students without homes, and that number could easily double if those not identified or hiding their homelessness were counted. That number doesn't even factor in younger siblings, those under the age of 6. Hundreds of thousands of babies, toddlers, preschoolers in the most critical developmental stage of their lives, lacking a place to call home. For these littlest nomads, and for all of us, homelessness in America is an early childhood crisis.
And D is for
Devontae and Dante and Dog.
Embarrassed and traumatized, parents fear losing custody of their children if their plight is discovered. To avoid being noticed, they bounce from friend to relative to cheap motels, shelters, campgrounds, cars, and streets. Littlest nomads become experts in poverty and homelessness before they even get to their elementary school doors.
G is for
Gorilla.
and what comes after G?
Discarded by society, communities unaware, multitudes of littlest nomads spend their most formative years in appalling surroundings, far from the idyllic environments depicted in baby magazines. Swaddled in squalor, stability shattered, their family unit rocked by endless catastrophes, these toddlers eventually end up sitting in classrooms overwhelmed by fear, uncertainty, and stress, thwarting chances to achieve classroom success and greatly jeopardizing the odds of graduating from high school, let alone college.
Say it out. B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, J. J.
Federal demonstration programs confirm that homeless children have greater developmental delays, health issues, and learning problems than other children living in poverty. Small children need safe, positive, predictable relationships and environments for optimal development. And besides a place to live, their struggling parents need someone to support and believe in them. But their nomadic lives make that almost impossible for many reasons. Most communities lack awareness of homelessness among young children, so these littlest nomads remain invisible to the early childhood services that could help them.
So it comes out to L. L. M.
M.
Find the M.
Look at the one for the M that looks like
High mobility keeps families from staying long enough to make it to the top of waiting lists for important programs. This mobility also makes it more challenging to locate and consistently serve these families. Inadequate transportation to public early education and preschools, especially in rural areas, keeps homeless families from accessing scarce services. Funding for programs serving this vulnerable and voiceless population is severely limited. But despite these obstacles, gallant efforts nationwide strive to help homeless families overcome their challenges, with schools at the foundation of assistance. Federal law requires every school district to designate a liaison for homeless children and youth. With a concerted effort, families with toddlers and preschool-age kids will be connected with Head Start, which has shown a 44% increase in numbers of homeless children served and other services. Head Start prioritizes these homeless tykes for enrollment and develops plans, including essential transportation for meeting their needs. Homeless service providers and school district liaisons must make sure that homeless children and families can benefit from Head Start's comprehensive services or other vital programs. Some communities provide a specialized daycare environment for babies and toddlers traumatized by homelessness so that parents can look for housing, work, or attend appointments while their children receive quality daycare.
We created a space of belonging where children felt at home, and in the process taught them to love themselves. If a child's crying, we're going to respond to the tears. If a child's mad, we're going to respond to the anger. If a child's feeling happy, we're going to respond to the joy.
Another invaluable and growing effort, ironically, home visiting. It connects disenfranchised families with a professional educator who guides parents on the basics, like how to read and relate to their children, with the goal of improving school readiness. This educator becomes the consistent support for the family, encouraging and assisting parents with educationally related challenges. In programs like the Mobile Outreach Parent-Child Home Program on Long Island, the home visitor goes to the family, eliminating the transportation and high mobility barriers. Families staying in shelters, motels, vehicles, and campgrounds anywhere will see their teacher on a regular basis. Besides the obvious benefit to children, parents gain an invaluable support system that helps them navigate the ordeals of homelessness.
Ultimately, in a weird sense of the way, really eased the situation that we were going through. You know, just knowing that she was coming and just a little conversation here and there and seeing how happy the kids were and learning and it felt like they gave a normalness to our lives.
Home visitors bridge gaps for families isolated by poverty and homelessness, imparting vital guidance and support to beleaguered parents, encouraging them to nurture and teach their little ones.
A balance and a normalness to people whose lives are at that time unbalanced and everything is chaotic and everything is unknown and you're here in one place today and here in another place tomorrow, but they're still there. They're following you everywhere you go.
Parents of littlest nomads have limited capacity to fight for their children or for the programs that help them. What can be done? Check your community's public schools. Is their homeless liaison aware of what needs to be in place to help homeless babies and toddlers? Is adequate outreach occurring? Find out from the liaison or other community agencies working with homeless families what practical resources are needed. Collect and distribute essential supplies like diapers and formula. Encourage service clubs, professional organizations, parents groups, college and university students to watch Littlest Nomads. Then inventory local efforts to assist families with younger children. Initiate contact with local, state, and federal legislators. Ask them about their awareness of this crisis and the local needs. Encourage them to learn about and protect this vulnerable population. Do our littlest nomads count? Do their families deserve the supports that will ensure thriving rather than barely surviving? Can our nation afford the consequences of their neglect? Children who are loved, nurtured, talked with, and read to are prepared to learn when they enter school. They have a much better chance of finishing school ready to contribute to society in a positive way. Lifting littlest nomads from their obscurity into the consciousness of America is the first step in restoring their American dream. Instead of prodding besieged parents to grab tattered bootstraps, we must collectively cradle and sustain the most vulnerable among us.
It spelled your name right, but it didn't have to.
Get my hair all fixed. All right, are we on live? No.
I think so. Can you hear me?
I'm on mute, but I'm not. Oh, wait, I muted. All right. Yes, now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. All right, that's always a good thing. All right. Well, hello there, Kathy.
Hello, Diane.
I just, I'm going to get interrupted here just a second. My sister, I just got home in the mountains in North Carolina, and I thought I was not going to be on this, but I'm I got called on, so I'll let you know. Okay. All right. So I just finished a 3-month book tour, so I'm just a little on the wonky side. So so that's my excuse. I don't know if you need an excuse, but I will let you just introduce yourself first of all while I get my act together here.
Sure. My name is Kathy Alderman. I am the Chief Communications and Public Policy Officer for the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And I've been in this role for about 9 years.
All right. And that's not good because my signal is wonking out on me. But I think I have the general idea of you are the person who gets to do these kind of events because of your job. So I follow the news in across the country on homelessness. I concentrate mostly on family homelessness, but I also see what's happening in different parts of the country, and have spent some time in Colorado interviewing, families and doing some filming. So I'm vaguely familiar with what's going on in Colorado, but could you just maybe give an overview of what's happening, the sweeps and all of the things that are kind of making life miserable for a lot of people?
Sure. Well, across the state of Colorado, we know that there are between probably 14,000 and 150,000 individuals experiencing homelessness. The reason for that variation is because of how we count people. Some people like to use the point in time numbers, single night in January, where volunteers go out and find people experiencing homelessness and do counts in shelters. That higher end number is the number of people who were using Medicaid for their insurance over a year and indicated that they were at severe risk of becoming homeless or experiencing homelessness at the time of applying for Medicaid. And then we have numbers in between, Department of Ed numbers, Homelessness Management Information System numbers. We think it's really important to
try to understand as we think about interventions for homelessness, what the population is that we are actually talking about. And of course, it's very difficult to get any hard numbers. I would say in Colorado, we have some really interesting and innovative interventions that we've provided to subpopulations of people experiencing homelessness. But unfortunately, we also have some harmful and hurtful policies that have been implemented in different parts of the state. Primarily, we have multiple camping bans in multiple areas of the state, which we always see as kind of this, gut reaction to visible homelessness, right? So for our communities who haven't seen a lot of people experiencing homelessness, though they know some may exist in their community, when they start to see more, their immediate reaction is, how can we make the visible part of this go away? And that's when we see communities enacting these dangerous and harmful camping bans. And they vary in terms of enforcement from city to city. Some being very punitive, writing tickets for people who are just existing in public space for purposes of survival, to places that really will make sure that they're trying to connect somebody to services before they ask them to move along. Obviously, the Grants Pass decision has had an impact, a significant impact on how some of these are being enforced, especially in some areas, that really see enforcement as the way to, resolve their responsibilities of having to manage people experiencing homelessness. And, at the end of the day, we know, like hundreds of thousands of other people know across the country, camping bans do nothing to resolve homelessness. And in fact, they can make it much worse, especially when those camping ban violations end up creating civil and criminal penalties that many people experiencing homelessness can't afford to pay or manage themselves. And so we try to push back on those and try to highlight the real solutions, which we know can be, emergency shelter, transitional housing, and obviously long-term housing with supportive services is the long-term solution.
Well, I wish I could say that, gee, things are really different in Colorado because everything is good everywhere else. But you pretty well described what I've seen, heard, read everywhere across the country. And it's just so, as long as I've been doing this, which has been a long, long time, it's disconcerting to see that things are getting worse and not really too excited and enthused about what's going to be happening starting January. So you did give a little bit of hope that there's a few programs that are really doing something that seem to be effective and positive and humane. Can you give just a little short synopsis of those?
Sure. I think I'll highlight three unless some others come to mind. But the first is that there are several communities in Colorado that have partnered with different agencies and government entities to implement Built for Zero. And this is really targeted at veterans experiencing homelessness. And we've seen in several communities that collaborative effort, the investment of resources, the connection of veterans with housing vouchers and supportive services and case management services has really led to what we describe as functional zero for veterans experiencing homelessness in the community. That doesn't mean that there will never be a person who identifies as a veteran experiencing homelessness, but what it does mean is that can get resolved quickly because of the systems we've put in place and the resources we've invested to make sure that our veterans aren't living on the streets without a safe and stable home. That initiative is, really gaining a lot of interest and support, and I think we'll see a real statewide investment on that, so that we can bring it to other communities, which I think is, it's one way to show that when you are smart with the data that you have, the resources that you have, and you invest the time and collaboration into addressing homelessness for a specified population, that you can make a big difference. And so I always argue, once you see that with a population of veterans or children or people who might be criminally justice involved, imagine if you could bring that to scale for all people experiencing homelessness, because the solutions are the same, right? We need better services. We need streamlined ways for people to get access to the things they need to live and become stable. And those things, while some of the approaches may change from population to population, the overall solution is the same. Another thing that I would highlight is in the city of Denver, under a new mayor's administration, we really saw this new mayor take a different approach to homelessness and enforcement of the camping ban, really committing to saying, not going to enforce the camping ban unless I can offer you an alternative. And the city of Denver contracted with a number of hotels, some of which they actually purchased, and is now using those as temporary transitional housing options for people exiting street homelessness. They can stay in the hotels and motels and work on that long-term option. I would say the caveat, unfortunately, is that Denver is a very high-cost housing market with not a lot of housing resources available. And so, unfortunately, I don't think people are moving out of those hotels as quickly as we would like. But there is movement, and hopefully, if we can see the investment of more resources and a little bit more collaboration from our state government, we'll be able to move people out. And then the third thing I'll highlight is for 11 years, in partnership with the state of Colorado, the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless has operated a program called the Fort Lyon Residential Recovery Community. And that is a former VA hospital, state correctional facility that 12 years ago, we turned into a transitional housing program for people experiencing homelessness who had substance use disorders. And when they are ready to address their substance use disorders, they're able to come to Fort Lyon and stay with us for up to 2 years while we work with them on recovery from their substance use disorder, recovery from homelessness, recovery from whatever led to their homelessness. And it's a really strong community where people can get connected with community college resources, employment resources, and really build out, some of that community that you lose when you enter the cycle of homelessness. And we've had great success with people graduating from that program, moving back to communities and stabilizing. And the state is now currently investing in a second location for a similar program, which is going to be called the Ridgeview Residential Recovery Facility, with similar services, healthcare services on site, being able to bring in some additional resources for folks so that they can get connected with employment opportunities or educational opportunities. But the most important thing is that we know that there is a population of people experiencing homelessness who are struggling with substance use disorders. They can't afford 30-day, 60-day fancy detox facilities, but they deserve access to the recovery services as much as anybody else. And this is that kind of environment where we can provide those services, and it gets them out of the chaos of homelessness and into a more calming environment where they don't have to worry about where their meal is coming from, where they're going to sleep that night, whether they're going to be able to see a doctor or a nurse for any of their physical health issues. And it's proven to be really successful. Many of our graduates say there's no way that they would have been able to get out of their troubles with substances without having been able to come to Fort Lyon. And so now that we're on the pathway to opening up a second facility, I have a lot of hope that we'll really be able to serve an even broader population of folks and give them that chance to recover and stabilize.
Wow. Really, those three examples just make it really exciting to think that next year we're going to come and bring the blankets to Denver, and hopefully, we'll have a chance to tour some of the programs and talk to some of the folks that are in it, and that we can help call attention to what seems to be, and I know this just from my experience, it's a massive effort on the part of the staff, providers, volunteers, and also a lot of trust that comes from the folks that are without a place to live, to know that they're in good hands when they come to your coalition programs and do what you're doing so well. So I think, from what I understand from being the stand-in person here, I'm
Uh-oh. I think Diane froze.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, there we go. And there's Pat. Hey there.
Person in here, but where's the mic? They took my mic away. Okay.
Yeah. So your audio's cutting out, I think.
Yeah, I can't hear. I can see that she's talking, but I
We
can't
can
hear
read
her.
her lips. But
Anybody can hear anybody.
yeah.
Is this one better?
Yes.
That's
Can you
better.
guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh!
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to you. We're looking forward to seeing you next year, but we're going to ask for no wind. If you could put that into the plan.
I will say, we're getting ready
Right,
to.
well, have a wonderful weekend. Happy holidays. Thank you, Diane. Thank you
My
very
pleasure.
much. We're thrilled with Colorado people and with you in particular, Kathy. Thanks for everything.
We're looking forward to seeing you.
And I'm Pat LaMarche. We are in Philadelphia, and any minute now, we are going to be hearing from Eric Tars, who is from the National Homelessness Law Center. I got to talk with him earlier this week, and it was just fantastic to hear what he's got to say. Of course, what he has to say is terrible because of things like Johnson versus Grants Pass and the criminalization of homelessness being condoned by the United States Supreme Court. But the good news is that the National Homelessness Law Center is on top of it. After my conversation with Eric Tars, we're going to show you a clip from a new film coming out called Beyond the Bridge about how we can actually solve homelessness for the chronically homeless. If you don't know, a chronically homeless person is someone who's experienced homelessness 364 consecutive nights. That's a darn hard thing to prove, but that's what the definition is. And if you are a person experiencing chronic homelessness, then you lose about 18 years of your life expectancy, because it's pretty cold out right now. And I can't imagine going to sleep on the ground here tonight. Anyway, so let's go now to the video with Eric Tars with my recording from earlier this week. And after that, you'll see a clip from the upcoming movie, Beyond the Bridge. So right now, we are with Eric Tars, Senior Policy Director for the Homelessness Law Center, correct? Yes?
National Homelessness Law Center, yes.
Perfect.
Mouthful.
Thanks for joining us. And you live in Philly.
I do. Have been living in Mount Airy the entire time, more than 18 years that I've been at the law center. And so there's a tension there because my work is national. I'm working with communities and states and the federal government everywhere across the country. And I also live in a community, and I want to do as much as I can for the community here, but my attention is also always pulled elsewhere. So I try to do what I can and show up where I feel like I can make the most difference and bring a national perspective into the local issues that we also are seeing all across the country. But yeah, like try to figure out what my value add is for the local conversation.
Well, and that's we appreciate you doing that for us, because that is our goal too. We are a micro level where somebody self-selects to sit down and put 100 hours into a blanket for a total stranger, as I like to call them, perfect strangers. And that's a very personal, small micro thing. But then we put 1,000 of them out in some public place to try and say, hey, we got a problem. There's a problem here. And this is how big it would be if the 1,000 people experiencing homelessness in this community were visible. These blankets are what they'd be under. And so we too try to, the problem's so big, it's going to be a local issue and a national issue forever, right?
No, it's not going to be a national. Like, I mean, the solutions should always be a national priority, but I think we have let the problem get to the scale it has gotten to. But that was a choice. That was a choice made by our elected officials. Basically back in 1980 when they cut the HUD budget for affordable housing in half. But for half a century before that, from basically the Great Depression up through the 1970s, our country had a commitment. President Roosevelt had looked out across the country and said, I see 1/3 of my nation ill-clothed, ill-housed, ill-fed. And he realized that, hunger is a breeding ground for tyranny. Necessitous men, he said, are not free men. And the New Deal approach that he put in place, which eventually included what became HUD and housing assistance, public housing programs. It was about the actual material needs of people, but it was also part of this realization that he was looking across the pond, as it were, to what was going on in Germany, and saying that when people are so scared that they can't meet their daily needs for themselves and their families, they are more vulnerable to strong men who will tell them that I can solve all your problems, and oh, by the way, it's those people's fault that you have these problems. And so he said we have this, we've adopted a second Bill of Rights in this country, including the right to a decent home for every American. And that social contract that we made with each other, it was never fully put into law, but there was this agreement that we needed to make sure that every American at least had their basic need for housing met. And it was never perfect. There's racial discrimination, and there were always some folks who fell through the cracks. But for 30, 40 years, we did not see homelessness on the scale it is today.
Right.
And we can get back to that if we put in place not identical policies, but similar policies, similar investments to make sure that every American has their housing needs met. So yeah, no, I don't accept that the problem is too big to solve. This is exactly the kind of problem that we need the federal government for. And I'm, super scared that we now have a strong man telling us it's somebody else's fault and distracting us from the solutions that we actually need.
For my day job, I've been trying to work on a story this week about what's the stopgap for Pennsylvania against big, huge federal changes and things like healthcare funding, housing funding. What's going to be the barrier, the under the dome, put a protective dome over, and literally no one will talk to me. And the limited amount of conversation I've been able to have has been, we're just going to try and work together, which I completely understand. I think that's really great that people want to work for solutions. But it is kind of shocking in light of the fact that very recently, a couple of bipartisan deals were just blown up on the federal level. So I wonder how. That's probably a conversation for another day, but it was just kind of staggering that I couldn't get anybody to go on the record with how they were going to work on building protections. And as NGOs, right, non-governmental organizations like yours struggle to protect the individual rights and liberties of people who are unstably housed, which is, I mean, I've thought after decades of working with people experiencing homelessness, that we should just give the problems to them, because what they solve on a daily basis for absolute nightmares and still seem to make it to the next day is just, it's just an Olympic feat of resourcefulness. I agree with you that people are vulnerable to strongmen, and part of it is that that conversation people have with themselves where they say, I really have to believe that person deserves it, or else I have to accept that it can happen to me. So, and it can't happen to me. I can't become homeless. I don't, so this person has to have been asking for it.
Yeah. I think in America, we have this myth of, if you work hard, then you get ahead. And so therefore the corollary is, if you haven't gotten ahead, it must be because you as an individual haven't worked hard, which has always been a myth. But it distracts from the systemic causes. It's a very convenient narrative for elected officials to play into, because it misdirects attention away from their failures to solve the systemic problems. Like right now in America, more than half of American renters can't afford the rent that they're paying. That is none of their individual faults. That is the fault of a system which has not produced enough affordable housing and has not made sure that the general public's wages rise at the same level as the cost of living is growing up. Meanwhile, billionaires are raking in, hundreds, thousands of times the profits that they had. Those are systemic problems that no individual facing eviction, facing homelessness is responsible for. But that's, it's the convenient narrative that elected officials get to draw on in order to keep people distracted from the actual solutions, keep those profits going to the upper levels. And as you kind of said, for an individual, we often see we see folks like Elon Musk who are disgusted by the people experiencing homelessness, by the poor, and express that disgust in ways that, say, I don't want to see those folks. I want to put them into camps far away from wherever I have to view them. But then on the flip side, you get people on the margins working hard every day, and they say, why should I have to work 2 jobs to pay my rent and that person gets a house for free, rather than saying, why should I have to work 2 jobs to pay my rent? And that's the trick that the elected officials are playing on us, using this personal responsibility narrative. So that's because once people who are working 2 jobs to pay their rent see themselves in solidarity with the people who've already lost their housing despite working those 2 jobs to pay their rent, then we have the power to actually get the changes we need. And so they are working very hard to keep those people right there on the edge, trapped in their fear lizard brain, not thinking constructively, but instead just being reactive and thinking about, like, how do I make sure that I keep myself and my family protected, rather than how can we make sure the whole community is protected.
Right. That's the other myth that is really frustrating to me, is the myth that there are people out there that are getting free stuff and aren't working for it. When I worked in shelters, we kept very, very specific records. We had to, right? Because we weren't going to get funding. And 55% over 10 years, 55% of the people I worked with had an income, and 30% more were their kids. So 85% of the people that walked in and out of my shelter were the working poor and their children. And when I was interviewing people from Grants Pass, during the Grants Pass stories of earlier this year, where they were criminalizing homelessness, and the Supreme Court said that was fine, I had to work around work schedules to interview the people experiencing homelessness at Grants Pass that they were punishing. It was like, okay, I'll call you. Well, no, I have to work that time. And it's really this whole mythology of, I'm doing what I need to do, so this will never happen to me, that it's such a heartbreaking thing to see. But so the focus of this year's blanket has been children and youth experiencing homelessness and the education of children and youth experiencing homelessness. And so we have a lot of blankets that have Spider-Man and really fun stuff on them, so that when the kids get them, they'll feel like someone made them something really special. But there's a new film out this year that deals with the whole other side of homelessness from children and youth and education, and that 47,600-ish students in Pennsylvania alone are experiencing homelessness this year. Right now, 47,600. But Don Sawyer and Tim Hashko and Beyond the Bridge have a new film out that basically deals with chronic homelessness and mostly individual homelessness, and the absolute brilliant Sam Simbaris and his ilk solution of housing first. And you're one of the team that brought that to Philadelphia for a showing of their film. And we are going to show the impact clips for it after we get done talking. But I just wanted to know how that went. You brought the film to Philly. You had a good size audience. How was it received?
It was received really well. We had, several hundred people come out on a Thursday night right before Thanksgiving. The mistake that we made that we couldn't have anticipated when we scheduled the showing was that it turned out it was also the same night as one of the hearings for the 76ers arena being placed into Chinatown. And so the real goal of hosting these film viewings and the conversations afterwards is to make sure that all the stakeholders are there who need to be part of the conversation so that they can see what the film demonstrates so well, which is that, like, when you all get those people all together, you can actually change the system and move things in a really constructive direction. And so the folks who were there had a fantastic conversation, but I fear that the audience that we got in Philly was kind of already folks in the choir. And maybe we gave those folks in the choir more verses to sing, or the ability to sing more clearly with like the clear examples from the film. But I worry that just because of that chance occurrence that, like, we didn't get all of the mayor's staff and the Department of Housing folks and the city council members in the room with us, that we won't see, at least immediately, the same response that we have seen in some of the other communities. I just saw an article yesterday about after having shown the film in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, they have kind of announced that they're going in the direction that the film has set. That the mayor and other stakeholders were convinced, and so I know that the film can do this, can be like a sort of tipping point in the conversation when you get enough of the right people, you get kind of the critical mass of the stakeholders with the power to change things in the room, and then they all feel motivated to do it together. So yeah, I think we may either need a second showing in Philly on a date that doesn't have such conflicts to get that, or it may be that we have in fact planted those seeds, but we're just going to have to take a couple of extra steps to get there.
Right. It's interesting because the whole concept of being able to show the decision makers that the 76ers need a home, is just, they do. The 76ers need a home. That's perfect. No harm, no foul. That's all real. That's true. And so do the people that, and the community can only better support all kinds of good things when the community itself is healthy and safe and protected. And so, yeah. All right. Well, we want to make sure that if down below, there'll be a link to where people can find out for other showings of Beyond the Bridge. And we'll keep in touch and hopefully let our network know if it's going to be shown again in the Philadelphia area and beyond. Next year, 2025, the Memorial Blanket will be in Denver. So we've already got that all set in place with the Colorado Coalition. So, hopefully we can help support the Denver idea too. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. The work you do is just vital because, I mean, who'd be the lawyer for people experiencing homelessness if it wasn't for you folks, right? I mean, sticking up for people who can't stick up for themselves is such a noble thing, and we really appreciate it. And if we can help with any of that logistics to get the film back in Philadelphia, we'd love to help.
to say thank you so much for having me. I think the work that you do, both in your reporting and with work like the Blanket Project, are also, it's all part of the work that we need to be doing together. And if folks want to join in around the film, the link I'm sure you'll share. But also folks can go either to the National Homelessness Law Center's website, homelesslaw.org, or to housing.handcuffs.org, and sign up on our lists. We can get information to you. We've got model legislation, we've got talking points, sample op-eds and things, so that wherever people are, however they want to plug in, they can plug in into these conversations.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Eric. Happy
No, thank
holidays.
you.
Yeah, take care.
I have been waiting for this movie. Oh man, I'm gonna cry.
So we are on the road. Yeah, we've begun our journey to discover the solutions to homelessness.
You always have these competing interests that all want to end homelessness, and they never figure out a way to do it together.
Instead, what we have is some people doing it that way, some people doing it a different way.
There are a lot of films about homelessness, but there are few films that show you solutions to homelessness. And this film has a surprising solution.
The secret sauce here in Houston. Data-driven best practices of Housing First, working together as a collaborative system.
This movie is absolutely incredible.
It was everything I want to say to so many people I know.
If you don't want affordable housing in your backyard, you're going to end up with homeless people in your front yard.
The energy of the film was not biased.
So accessible. It covered the history. This movie shows what's really going on.
A lot of money goes into homelessness, but does not go into results.
And someone is profiting big time.
I was really impressed at how touching the film was.
Surprisingly, I cried several times.
I hadn't changed my clothes in 8 months. I hadn't taken a bath for 6. I was disgusting. I didn't care.
And it was funny.
You don't have anything?
Nothing. I only have high blood pressure or cholesterol.
It is not only about people who are homeless themselves, but about how every member of the community can get involved in solving this issue.
Beyond the Bridge, a solution to homelessness. The screening and panel discussion are at 7 p.m. tonight.
We always had in mind that we wanted a movement to go along with this, a unified message nationwide.
Community collaboration, a single homelessness response system, a foundation of Housing First.
It shows so much about how we can convince our elected officials, our change agents, and if we learn how to harness that, this movement should be unstoppable.
Beyond the Bridge should be mandatory for all legislators, regardless of your level of government.
The mayor has to be at the table.
Local government has to take a leadership role. That's where all the large institutional players are.
Local government is where rubber hits the road. Paired with effective policy, the sky's the limit.
I can't wait to show this to all of my fellow community members.
Everybody needs to see this film.
Everybody needs to see this film.
Oh, Netflix, you need to give them a deal.
Well, Davenport had one bookshop. I was an English major.
I am with Bishop Penman. welcome. Thank you for being here. This is home turf for you.
It
you,
is.
You are the Bishop of Southeast Pennsylvania Synod, Lutheran Bishop here.
Yep.
So thank you so much for being here. And so why is this important for you as the bishop to be here?
Yeah. Ministry of presence is an important thing for me, and showing up and being part of demonstrations like this help bring awareness of things that often go unseen. And so it's a visible reminder for us that we see our neighbors around us, even when we sometimes walk by them. We are privileged enough that I'm going to go home and be back in my warm house later tonight.
Right.
But for those who are here on the streets of Philadelphia tonight, it's going to be bitterly cold.
Right.
So we give thanks for blankets, and we give thanks for shelters, and we give thanks for people who care and choose to see things that other people choose not to see. And so we give thanks for the ministry of witness that this is. And yeah, it's an
Right.
important part of ministry that we do.
And you mentioned something really important, something that I have said before, is that this is really a ministry about being able to see the humanity of people, that homelessness is not an abstract issue. It's people who have names, who have faces, who have stories, they got families, all sorts of things. And that's just so very important, which is so much like what the church is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about some of the ministries in the Synod that are doing some things that are helping people who are kind of on the outskirts of society, who are unhoused and experiencing poverty.
Yeah, so our synod for a long time has had a ministry to the people on the streets of Philadelphia here called the Welcome Church, which has grown to the point where it spawned its own offshoot ministry called the Well, which is a sheltering program for women. Philadelphia has a significant need for women's shelters. We've got a significant number of men's shelters that open, but there's no real shelter for women, nor are there shelters that couples can really go to. And so that's a real need for us here in the city. To continue to raise awareness for that and work with the Office of Homelessness here in the city of Philadelphia to continue to bring awareness for those specific needs for our neighbors who call this home. And so they're here and they're part of our church, and we've had a ministry with them for a long time. And it's a beautiful thing to know that they are part of our church community. In a couple of days, at least those of us of the Christian persuasion will gather to remember the night that Jesus was born in a stable on the outside of Bethlehem, because there was no main place for them to be.
Right.
And we also celebrate that the joyful noise and the joyful songs from the angels.
Good timing.
Good
As the
timing
bell
as the bell
rings.
rings. But the good news was announced to the shepherds in the fields, because they didn't have homes, they slept with their animals. And so like the good news starts to come from the margins around us, and when we as the church are attentive to those margins and hearing those voices in our own life in our own time, then the good news gets to be born for us again. And so it's really fitting that we're here on the longest night, on one of the coldest nights that we've had here in Philly, at least, to remember those who are around us.
Yeah, and we've even been using the blankets. I was wrapped in a couple of blankets because I was so very cold. Even wearing a parka, it just is it gets so bitter. And I think about the folks who are unhoused and they're out on the streets, or they're living wherever they can find some shelter or anything like that, and they're out here. It's not just this time of the year. This is one of the things that people will often say is, what can I do? This is the time where people want to give, they want to do stuff, but it's also
it's a 24/7 ministry.
It's a 24/7 ministry, 365 days a year. This is why places like the Welcome Church, Violet Little, who's out there, is a friend of mine doing that. There are other churches that are doing such wonderful and important ministries, whether it's dealing with homelessness or hunger or anything of that nature. Are there other type of focuses that you find when you're going around the Synod about from the different congregations that they're really kind of focused on as far as ministries?
Yeah, there's a spectrum of things, of different services, but they're all interconnected, right?
Yeah.
So housing and healthcare and jobs and feeding, they're all interconnected. education and employment, and even creation care is all interconnected into a web of just how we take care of the planet and our neighbors and those who we're called to be in relationship with. And so we have pockets of that happening all over the place. So just because we're in downtown Philly today doesn't mean homelessness isn't happening like where I live in Conshohocken or in Norristown or in other parts of the Synod, because it's all around you. You just have to have the eyes to be able to see it. And so I always encourage folks, like, reach out to those agencies and organizations that are working with those populations to help get you back in relationship with some of the work that they're doing, because they're all around, and we just need to reach out and be proactive about being in relationship with them.
Yeah, and I think that's an important aspect of this, is that it's not a one person doing the whole thing, right? This requires a whole network. It requires a whole lot of partners doing this. You mentioned the interconnectedness of all this. I think that's really important as well, because if somebody's experiencing homelessness, they probably also are experiencing some kind of health issue. There's a transportation issue. There's health insurance issues, all sorts of things that people are experiencing. So, is there anything else that you want to share about the Synod, about the joy of the season?
Yeah. No, I just think really thankful that this was on our territory here this year. So
yeah, well, we're glad it worked out. Since we've been in 2 other parts of Pennsylvania, and we've done this 4 years now. This was supposed to be a 1-year event.
Well, that's what the Spirit does sometimes, right?
Well, and homelessness doesn't work on a one-time event either, right? And so we've been really fortunate to be able to do this 3 times here in Pennsylvania at significant locations. The symbolism of the Liberty Bell, Independence Hall. I mean, if you think about liberty and you think about independence, being able to be housed is such an important aspect of that. And then there's also the theological aspect that you had talked about. We're talking about the birth of Jesus and what that brings, and seeing the humanity, the image of God, and others. So I just want to thank you so much for the support that you have shown, and for coming out into the cold and the wind. So thank you so much, Bishop, for being here.
No
All
problem.
right. All right, I think we're gonna bring Marcia in, and we're gonna close us out here. Marcia, welcome back.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. It has been a wonderful afternoon filled with so many amazing partners that are doing this work.
Absolutely, and it's been cold.
It has been a little cold,
Which,
very appropriate.
But again, this is the thing. It's the longest night.
It is,
right,
and so for the coldest night record this year in Philly,
right,
8 degrees tonight. Yep.
Which is also very appropriate that this is when we're doing the blanket project.
Yep.
I mean, these are when the blankets are most needed. If you saw earlier, I was wearing 2 blankets because I was so cold.
Yep.
And I just need them. We got other folks, our camera crew, and we got other folks who are literally wrapped up in the blankets because it's providing warmth for us who are just out here for a few hours doing this. And these blankets are about to be, we're going to wrap up pretty soon here. We're going to get them folded up. We've got multiple different organizations coming to take all of the blankets, and they're going to be distributed. And so by 6 o'clock, all the blankets are going to be gone from here. Cars are going to pull up. We're going to hand them off in groups of 25. And all of these blankets that people have spent so much time and effort into making and showing care. Again, I go back to, it's the blanket. It's right over there.
Yeah.
That says that, what is it? I can't read it. It says,
let me grab it.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. So Marcia's going to grab the blanket, and we're going to hold it up, and here we go. Yeah, this is great. Here, let me grab this side.
We got this. We're live. We're live.
It says, I may never meet you, but I will love you just the same. What a beautiful message.
That is a beautiful message.
I mean, that is really kind of the key to what this project has been, what it continues to be, what it always has been. So What do you got? What do you got? Last thoughts,
Last thoughts
Marsha.
are where we're going next year.
Right.
This
It's
was
going to be.
supposed to be a one-time thing in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, 4 years ago. Here we are, still together,
Yep.
back at it. But just know that those of you that love to make blankets, whether you're knitting, you're crocheting, you're quilting, whatever it is,
Keep
those
making
hands
'em.
going. And we're hoping to have a variety of drop-off locations next year to be able to transport these to Denver, Colorado. But we are coming back yet again
That's right. Yep.
because there are still too many people that experience homelessness.
Right.
We're going to keep doing this until the day we don't need to do this.
That's right. That's right.
So
That's our
why we
hope
do
is
this.
that we don't have to keep doing this.
Yep.
That would be really that's the whole idea. What we're raising awareness around homelessness so that people don't forget that this is an issue. Again, it's not just an abstract issue. This is a real issue that affects people. It affects men, women, human beings, families, veterans, young children, seniors, trans folks, you name it. It's all sorts of folks who experience homelessness for a variety of reasons, because maybe some folks lost the job, because they had a health issue, because who knows what happened, but things happen. And I think that's the scary part is a lot of folks don't like to talk about homelessness because we all know that we're all not that far away from it, unfortunately.
No, one paycheck, one crisis away.
Right.
Really.
So with that, we want to thank you all.
Yes, thank you. And a
for your
huge shout
support.
out. What you don't see on camera is dozens of volunteers behind
Right.
the scenes, dozens of people working the tech team that are doing a phenomenal job, all in the name of those who are experiencing homelessness. So thank you to everyone who made today possible.
So with that, we thank you. I want to thank the Lower Susquehanna Synod for their
And
support.
the Southeastern
Southeast
Pennsylvania Synod.
Synod, Bishop Penman again, thank you very much. And all of the folks who were out here. We had folks who were handing out pamphlets and brochures about it, stopping and talking with people.
All right.
All right.
Next year.
There we go.
All right. We out.
Well-
Sorry. There's a signal interference. Sorry, guys.